Welcome back to my channel, y'all. Today's video is a really exciting one because it is my June reading wrap-up. I love watching these monthly reading wrap-up videos from some of my favorite booktubers. I'm really proud of my reading this month and also really excited that this is the inaugural reading wrap-up video on my channel because this was just such a great record-setting month for me. I started out the month at the beach. I was on vacation from about Memorial Day till June 2nd or 3rd. I think the momentum that vacation gave me really propelled me throughout the rest of the month. So I read 13 total books this month, 5 romance, 3 fantasy, 2 graphic novels, 2 mystery thrillers, and 1 literary fiction. The page count totals up to about 4,760 pages, and the average rating I gave this month was a 3.9. Alright, so the first book that I read this month was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This book was actually first released in April of this year, and I was really excited for it to come out. It was definitely one of my anticipated reads of the year, but I had said to myself I wanted to try to save it and read it when I went to the beach around Memorial Day, and let me tell you, that was a test of willpower because everyone was talking about this book. I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I was a little bit nervous going in because it had been so hyped up. I feel like sometimes, I don't know, I just worry that when books get a lot of hype, I go in with too high of expectations, but this one definitely delivered and I really loved it. So this book starts off strong. One of our main characters, Justin, anonymously takes to Reddit to lament about this phenomenon that has happened to him, where every girl he dates, when they break up, whoever the next person she dates ends up being the one. And he feels like he is cursed. That's where our other main character, Emma, comes in. She sees this post on Reddit, it went viral, so she decides to DM Justin because the same thing has been happening to her. So Justin and Emma decide that maybe they should date for a few months and then break up so that the curse will cancel out. And then hopefully they'll go on to find the one after they date each other. And Emma's a travel nurse, I believe, and so she decides to relocate to Justin's location just for the summer. I will say, I think reading Part of Your World and Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez first would definitely enhance your reading experience. You don't have to read these two first, but this is part of an interconnected standalone series. Part of Your World is the first book in the series, then Yours Truly, and then Just for the Summer. Something I really like about the books I've read from Abby Jimenez is that the characters are definitely extremely layered and real. Oftentimes the characters are kind of exploring who they really are and how that affects how they show up in their relationship. And I think that extra layer is something that just really adds this sparkle to them, and this book is no different. The only reason I didn't give this one 5 stars is just because there were parts of the book where our main character Emma kind of annoyed me. This book is definitely worth the hype and I can't wait to read more Abby Jimenez, hopefully later this year. The next book I read in June was The Fury by Alex Michaelides. I actually listened to this one on audiobook, so quick shout out to Spotify Premium for the 15 hours of free audiobooks. I am eating that feature up. I actually ended up giving this one a 2.5 stars. This is my lowest rated book of the month. I will say the narrator of the audiobook was excellent. I really liked his narration. He had a few different voices that he did for some of the characters. The Fury is a story told by a character named Elliot. Elliot is a friend of this reclusive ex-movie star named Lana. Lana owns this island in Greece, so I think it's Easter weekend. She invites a couple of her friends to the island, and while they're there, there's a murder. And so Elliot, who was present, is now telling us the story. I think the descriptions throughout this book were really nice. I could really picture the setting, so I did really like that. What I didn't like was it followed a very unusual but original kind of pacing for a thriller. I feel like it definitely did not follow kind of like the regular thriller formula. The thing that tripped me up about it was that Elliot, our narrator, I knew from the moment he opened his mouth on the first page that this man was an unreliable narrator.
Do not trust her.
Elliot says, when I'm pretty sure he starts the book, that this is not a whodunit. Even though it's not a whodunit, I couldn't help but sit there and come up with all my different theories on who got killed, who did the killing, why, and the only thing you really know for sure is that Elliot wasn't killed. Towards the end, there were just kind of some outlandish, crazy twists that didn't really shock me and more so just confused me. But because I really love Silent Patient, I thought this would be a fun one to give a go, and it kind of had summery vibes with it being set in in Greece, but unfortunately this one just like didn't really do it for me. I can't quite put my finger on what it was that I didn't like. It was kind of just a lot of little things. Next, I read Powerless. This was the first book I read after getting home from the beach, and I decided I want to switch up the beachy read vibes and go for a fantasy. And I am so glad that I did. I knew I wanted to prioritize Powerless on my June TBR because this is a trilogy, and the second book in the trilogy, called Reckless, actually just came out on July 2nd, so I'm super excited to read that one. This book is set in a kingdom where there are elites and ordinaries. Elites are people with a power of some kind. So the elites are in charge of this kingdom, and basically they believe that if they spend time around ordinaries, the ordinaries will kind of like absorb some of the power from the elites and make them less powerful. That's not actually true, but that's kind of just the excuse that they use to continue to rule and take power. So this book follows Payton, who is an ordinary posing as an elite. She has to kind of pretend to have powers in order to survive, so you get to kind of see her navigate that throughout the book, which is really interesting. And then the other main character in this book is Kai, who basically hunts down ordinaries and kills them. He's the second son of the current king, so his older brother is next in line for the throne. He was trained kind of as the enforcer. Those are our two main characters. This is dual POV. It switches back and forth between Payton and Kai. Obviously there is a lot of tension that the reader knows, but Kai doesn't necessarily realize that Payton is an ordinary, of course. A really cool fantasy world that took me no time to get into. I think if you're just starting off with fantasy, this could be a really great one to start with. I just flew through this one and absolutely loved it. So I give this one 5 stars if I didn't say that already. Then after Powerless, I followed up with Powerful by Lauren Roberts. This is a quick novella. It was about 192 pages, but it's technically called book like 1.5. It's not a book that's part of the trilogy. It's just kind of like an add-on. This novella follows the exact same timeline as Powerless, but you're getting 2 new perspectives. In this book, you're following Adina and Mac. Adina is Payton, our female protagonist's best friend, and she has a completely different personality type from Payton, but they really mesh well together as best friends. It was really interesting to kind of get her inner thoughts. She is super bubbly and extroverted, and her dynamic with Mac is kind of like grumpy sunshine, which is really fun, but it also was really sad. I literally cried reading this. I gave this one 4 stars. I feel like as a novella, you don't get to like dive into the characters the same way you do with a full novel. In June, I also heard a lot about Heartstopper, so I went and picked up the first 2 and read them literally in like one sitting. I feel like everyone has been talking about Heartstopper lately, specifically Sarah and Katie. I'll link their channels down below. But these books were unlike anything I've read before, really. They're graphic novels, which I read one graphic novel my senior year of high school for my English class, but it was about World War II and it was a very different vibe. Heartstopper follows the stories of Nick and Charlie. They are both young men in high school, presumably. This is set in the UK, I'm pretty sure, so whatever they call high school in the UK. They go to an all-boys school, and Charlie is out and openly gay, and then Nick is a rugby lad. He's kind of known as like a jock, and his friend group is kind of mean. Nick and Charlie end up sitting next to each other in one of their classes. Nick is, I think, a grade older than Charlie. So anyways, they end up sitting together and they become friends, and Nick actually recruits Charlie for the rugby team. It's kind of just an amazing queer coming of age story. I also felt like it was fun to read these during Pride Month specifically. I think these books were just a great reminder for me of like, you never know what someone could be going through, and just about the importance of kindness and friendship and love. The back of volume 1 says, boy meets boy, boys become friends, boys fall in love. And I think that's kind of the essence of books 1 and 2. Here is a closer look at kind of what the graphic novel looks like up close, but it's really nice to see kind of up close the facial expressions and reactions of the characters throughout the book to kind of get that extra level of understanding for how they're feeling. So there also is Heartstoppers volumes 3, 4, and 5 out. So I have those on my TBR. I'm just trying to kind of savor them because I don't want to read them all at once and then not have anything to look forward to. Heartstopper is also a series on Netflix, so I really want to watch that. I read somewhere that season 1 covers books 1 and 2. So that's why I read books 1 and 2 specifically, so that then I could go watch season 1, and then I thought I would come back and then read the rest. The graphic novel component of this plus the Netflix show just really intrigued me, so I will keep you guys posted as I read the next volumes. In June, I also picked up Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. Is that how you say it? This book was actually published on June 4th of this month, so this is a brand new release. I was really excited to read this because I love Annabelle Monaghan. I actually have her other 2 books as well, and I read these last summer. Nora Goes Off Script and Same Time Next Summer. And they're not an interconnected standalone, so you could read these in any order you want. I ate this book up. From the moment I started reading it, I think I read it in like a day. Annabelle Monaghan's writing is excellent. She really knows how to pace a story, and she doesn't make them too long. That's one of my biggest pet peeves, is like, especially with the romance, I'm like, why is this 460 pages? Like, this, we could have been done with this. She knows how to get to the point but still build the tension and build the romance. Like, it never feels rushed, but it also doesn't feel like it drags, which I think is just something that's really hard to do. I will say, as I started this book, I was a little bit unsure about it. I feel like the premise wasn't one that was super enticing to me, but as I got into it, I quickly was eating up the plot, the characters, the story. Our main characters are Allie and Ethan. Allie is a professional organizer, but she is an absolute mess right now. Her mom passed away 2 years ago, and she just didn't really know what to do with herself. She's also a mother of 3, I believe, young children. And then a year after her mom died, her husband left her because he didn't understand why she was still grieving. So he's a really great guy. All that to say, when we start the story, Allie's kind of like, okay, it's time to put some jeans on and go outside. And so once she goes outside in said jeans, she heads to the dog park and runs into our other main character, Ethan. That's all I'll tell you. If you're headed to the lake, the pool, the beach, I can't think of a better beach read. That's a new release to bring along with you. Next, I read Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult and Jennifer Finney Boylan. I saw this book on a lot of lists recapping the best books of 2023. I kind of had my eye on this one for a few months and then finally got around to it in June. So Olivia has a son, Asher, who is, I think, a senior in high school. Then Asher's girlfriend, Lily, getting alternating POVs from this boy's mom and this boy's girlfriend, which is very interesting. Olivia, who's the mom, didn't imagine that she would end up back in her sleepy New Hampshire town. But after her husband starts showing some abusive tendencies, she ends up back in the house she grew up in, running her father's beekeeping business. And Lily was ready for a fresh start too. She and her mom moved all the way, I think, from California to New Hampshire for her senior year, and that's when she and Asher started dating. Then one day, Asher calls his mom, Olivia, and tells her that Lily is dead and that he's being questioned by the police. Also, Olivia, her chapters are in chronological order, but Lily's chapters are in reverse chronological order because basically she dies in the beginning of the book. So her first chapter is like the day she died, and then her next chapter is like a week before, and then the next chapter is like 2 weeks before. Those alternating POVs and timelines with every chapter just really slowed down my momentum. So that's a little bit about this book. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I know that this was a really popular book last year and that a lot of people loved it. It just wasn't for me. I would say definitely look up trigger warnings if you're going to read this. There are a lot of different topics that this book covers. There is a big theme in this book that is not mentioned in the book description that is a huge part of this story specifically. I don't necessarily want to say it in this video and spoil it if you don't want to know. I don't want to speak too cryptically, but this topic that is such a big plot point in this book was heavily explored and discussed. I really appreciated the discussion on this topic. That was not what bothered me. What bothered me is I had no idea this was going to be such a big topic in this book based on the book description. I thought it was really well written and it addressed some important issues. And so while I think these topics are really important to talk about, I think this book itself just didn't connect for me. I don't know. I just wasn't like on the edge of my seat, which I feel like I kind of should be considering it's kind of like a courtroom case. Once I finished Mad Honey, I decided I needed something lighthearted and fun and easy, and so I turned to the Chestnut Springs series by Elsie Silver. This first book in the series is called Flawless, and it follows Rhett Eaton and Summer Hamilton. If you're unfamiliar with the Chestnut Springs series, it is a series of 5 romance novels, small town, cowboy vibes. They're pretty spicy, and they just are kind of unserious. So Rhett is a professional bull rider and everyone is like obsessed with him. He's the golden boy, but then he gets into this like public brawl and he kind of badmouths one of his sponsors, and so naturally his publicist puts him in timeout. Summer Hamilton is the daughter of Rhett's publicist, or like agent. Yeah, okay, his agent. So Summer's dad sends her to go basically babysit Rhett at his ranch. Naturally, a romance develops. I'm reading the second book in the Chestnut Spring series now, which is called Heartless. These books are honestly kind of like silly, lighthearted. I find myself kind of chuckling at their inner monologues on occasion. In terms of a romance, like, it's not Abby Jimenez, it's not Emily Henry. So I give this one about a 3.5 stars. I think for what it is, it's a fun time. It was much needed, honestly, after kind of Mad Honey. Mad Honey was depressing. Flawless was a nice change of pace, and I think that made me appreciate it more. The 10th book I read in June was Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. I kind of started to see this popping up on my Goodreads, seeing a lot of friends mark it as like want to read or reading it. I decided to download it. It was on Kindle Unlimited. I gave this book 5 stars. I'm kind of sitting on that rating and I'm like, was it a 5 stars? And I'm still feeling excited about it. I think for most people it's gonna be like a 4 star, and I get that, but for me, I just really liked this book. This book follows 3 women, Jessica, Nora, and Alicia, and they all grew up in the same foster home together, and their foster mother's name was Miss Fairchild. Now, in present day, this home that they grew up in, I think, was sold, and they are kind of like digging out under the house, being like demolished or excavated. I don't know. They're gonna build something else on top of it. They find a body. The police then contact our 3 girls, Alicia, Nora, and Jessica, to have them come into the station and tell them about what it was like living with Miss Fairchild in this home. The girls are obviously anxious that they might be suspects. The chapters alternate points of view between the 3 sisters, which at first I was a little bit hesitant about because I thought I might get confused with 3 different sisters, but they have very distinct personalities and it was very easy to distinguish who was talking. This definitely touches on some heavier topics in terms of foster care and the foster system. They also are all kind of navigating these own personal struggles that kind of arose out of some of the neglect they experienced in the foster system, and so they're still kind of experiencing those things in the present timeline, and you're kind of getting to see them work through those things. I was very happy with the ending of this book. I felt like the resolution was exactly what I wanted. And the very last chapter, just if you know, you know, I really enjoyed the twist, and I really enjoyed kind of the character study of these sisters, plus this like thriller element that really propelled me through the story. I love this one. It's actually set in Australia, and Sally Hepworth is actually an Australian author, so I thought that was really cool, and I didn't know her that before going into Darling Girls. It was cool to kind of feel transported to Australia. I watched too much Love Island Australia. Okay, next I read This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. I really liked Carly Fortune's debut novel, Every Summer After, so I was really excited last year to read Meet Me by the Lake, which was her 2023 release, and it just kind of fell flat for me. It took me so long to get through that book. It was fine, but it wasn't like anything special, so I was kind of on the fence if I wanted to pick up her new release, This Summer Will Be Different. I ended up giving this book about 3.5 stars. I liked it, but I didn't love it. It was better than like a meh, but it wasn't like, oh my god, 4 stars. In this book, we have our main character, Lucy. That is the only POV we get throughout the whole book. I will say Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan was single POV. I feel like this is single POV done right. But with this book, I think I really would have liked to have Felix's point of view. I will say I think the reason we don't get Felix's point of view in this book is that we do kind of alternate timelines. And I think that it would be confusing to alternate timelines as well as POVs. So I don't know. Here's the premise of this book. Our main character, Lucy, becomes best friends with this girl, Bridget. I think they're about 22 maybe when they become best friends. Bridget is from Prince Edward Island. The following summer after they become best friends, Bridget's like, oh my god, girl, you have to come to Prince Edward Island. I gotta show you my hometown. So Lucy's like, okay, yeah, of course. And Bridget's basically like only friendship rule is like, please don't fall in love with my brother, which like fair enough, right? So anyways, Bridget and Lucy plan a trip to PEI, Prince Edward Island, and Lucy ends up getting there a day before Bridget does. So Lucy just starts perusing the island, being touristy, and she runs into this guy, Felix, and they end up having like a one-night stand. Only for Lucy in the morning to realize that she just hooked up with Bridget's brother. So now we fast forward the timeline. It's like 5 years later. Bridget and Lucy are still best friends. Bridget still has no idea, and the guilt is eating away at Lucy. And so it still alternates timelines throughout the rest of the book. 4 summers ago, 3 summers ago. And so you get a little taste of like their interactions each summer, because naturally Bridget and Lucy continue to go back to the island every summer. Felix lives there full time, so that's why he's always there when they go to visit. I feel like for me with this book, I was looking for a little bit more like humor. As we know, Lucy and Felix hooked up that first summer. Anytime they start hooking up and just like, oh my god, these two. Like, I felt like their attraction stayed very physical, and it wasn't until sort of the end of the book that I started to kind of see their emotional connection. I feel like it was good, it was cute.
Kendall, you didn't stick out to me.
But she didn't stick out to me. Okay, next book was another Kindle Unlimited read. This is Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. I actually read this one in my most recent vlog, so I will link that down below if you want to check out my real-time reactions to this one. This is a new release for 2024, and it's part of a duology, so the next book in the series will come out in February. This book was just excellent. It's another young adult fantasy, and I really was just chasing the high that I got from Powerless, and I feel like Heartless Hunter really delivered. It has some of the same kind of tropes. There are witches and witch hunters. The rulers overthrew these queen witches, so now the witch hunters slash just like non-witches rule the kingdom, and they basically try to kill and exile all of the witches. So our main female protagonist, Rune, is indeed a witch. She is pretending by day to be a normal, superficial, ditzy girl in this society. It has like Bridgerton vibes. They go to balls and they court each other. So she's of that age, and she is very into all of her fashion, like very Regency era. So that whole element of this was just really fun. But no one suspects that Rune's a witch. She plays the part really well of this like socialite by day, but by night she's the Crimson Moth, and she helps other witches escape being purged, and she's basically this notorious kind of figure amongst the Blood Guard, which the Blood Guard are the ones that try to capture and execute the witches. So the Blood Guard has been looking for the Crimson Moth, and our other main character in this novel, Gideon, is like the head leader of the Blood Guard. Gideon kind of has the suspicion that Rune might be involved with the Crimson Moth somehow, and Rune wants insider information from Gideon about leads that the Blood Guard has on witches. So Rune and Gideon end up befriending each other and actually kind of courting, and they both think they're like playing the other. This book was such a fun ride. I definitely recommend it, especially if you liked Powerless. I think you would really like Heartless Hunter. And I initially gave this one 4 stars, but I think I'm gonna up it to 4.5 because I've been thinking about this one a lot, and I think it was just really well done. And the last book I read in June was A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. This one is also covered in that most recent vlog that I have linked down below if you want to see my real-time reactions. This was one of my most anticipated reads for the summer. I was so excited for this to come out. I think it came out on June 24th. If you're unfamiliar with Ashley Poston's novels, she's somewhat known for a little bit of magical realism, and this book is no different. This book follows Elsie, who is on her way driving up to her book club's annual retreat when she kind of gets lost and her car breaks down, and all of a sudden she finds herself in what looks like the town that her favorite fictional book series is set in. I really loved Elsie, but I was like, girl, I didn't read these books. I unfortunately don't care that much. And so for me, it was kind of hard to get through some of that. I also just didn't really feel the connection between our love interests, Elsie and Anders. I felt like it was a really slow burn, and then all of a sudden they like couldn't keep their hands off of each other, and I was kind of like, where did this come from a little bit? This was a good book. It wasn't my favorite book ever, but it was a good book. It was cute. It was fine. All right, guys, that is going to be it for my June reading wrap up. Let me know what your favorite book that you read in June was in the comments down below. I think my top 3 favorites were Just for the Summer, Powerless, and Darling Girls. If you made it this far, comment down below with the sun emoji so I can know who made it to the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in another video very soon. Bye!